Oh yeah, yeah, I know. I mean, you've been on the show, and I've seen your
saying,
videos.
yeah, so people thought it's hilarious, and I'd say most people thought you're giving yourself too much importance there by saying that Intel are watching you. Well, now we know that
But
they
they
are.
are.
You know?
Or Palantir.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, it's quite disturbing. So yeah, like I said, when I went into when I bought the new phone yesterday, because like I said, I needed the contact with Svetlana. I couldn't be dependent on other people for their phones and asking people can I use their phones all the time, especially to call Russia. And people probably be nervous of me using their phones for that purpose anyway. But I got the new phone, and then I could see when I went into ChatGPT, I could see that four devices in England were logged onto my ChatGPT, one computer and three Android devices in different parts of Britain. So I could see Elmsall, that's the one I can remember, some place in London, and a couple of other places. And then a couple of the other apps, there was two or three devices like in them at the same time. So like I kicked those devices out. I've added two-step verification and changed some passwords and stuff
Hmm.
like that.
Did you catalog the people that are on?
I took screenshots.
Yeah,
I,
that's what I
I
mean.
mean, it won't tell you the people who are there. It'll just tell you. I was able to see that like there was a computer and three Android devices, so they could have been tablets or phones or whatever. Um, yeah, they did say they were going to take a deep dive into my thing, but I mean, all they're going to find is like holiday photos, uh, photos of me with beers in my hand, photos of food, and a
It's
lot of
good.
pub.
Those are good photos.
Um, but yeah, I, I said, guys, you can scan my gallery, I can see, and but like obviously they said they need to do a deep scan, a deep dive into into my devices. So what they
Hey
think
man,
they're gonna
hey,
find.
hey, you're a good-looking guy. There's a bunch of queers in the British police. They're doing a deep scan of your yeah, this is
No, no glue boy here.
yeah, yeah, you're not the poster boy in half these British cop locker rooms.
No, Kalen Robertson now be the man for that, but well, the boy for that,
Oh,
you
he's the
know.
service guy that they call after.
Zelensky's probably been there, and McCrowley and Mertz. They seem to all. I think they kind of all swing that way anyway.
Oh, they swing it any which way they can. That particularly if there's money and coke involved in it.
Yeah, but Stas, you know what the whole thing about it was? I never, I never got to deliver that. Now it looks like there's 14 pages, and they're double.
Wow, that's a lot.
No, but look, it would have been 5 or 6 minutes of reading. You know, it's just that like the print is big. I mean, look at
Well,
it.
you know what you need to do. I'm serious. Um, go in front of the British embassy, have somebody videotape you, and
Yeah.
deliver the speech.
Well, this the whole thing, Stas. I wasn't there, and I told the guys who were interrogating us. I told these counter-terrorism guys or border security guys, whatever you want to class them as. I said I actually wasn't here to bash Britain today. I said I have no love for your government. I said, and hopefully you don't take offense to that. I said, but neither have the guys that we were going down to the rally to meet. And I said, I don't know your feelings on your government. I said, I can tell you now, I don't know the incoming guy. I don't know Burnham, anything about him. I said, I despise Starmer. I said, because of the
Uh,
whole
if you love Stormer, you're gonna love Burnham, and vice versa.
yeah, well, that seems to be. They said that Burnham is just going to double down on
Yeah.
everything that Starmer had been doing. But then uh, I said that buffoon Boris Johnson. Obviously, I said this conflict could have been stopped. And do you know what the funny thing about it was? They weren't disagreeing with me. They were actually nodding their head. And so I said, my what I came to do, my speech uh, was directed at the Irish government. I wanted to talk about why the Irish government are funding this conflict and why every time the regime in the Rada were caught out in a new scandal, that Ireland were throwing more money at them. So I
Yeah.
think Ireland is nearly up to $500 million now. I mean, they're in for $500 million with Ukraine. Just that's just what we know, and there could be more than what could be money
Oh
that
yeah,
we don't.
absolutely.
I'm sure they don't tell the taxpayer everything. Do you want me to read out the first page? Just that this is
Yeah,
just this.
yeah, do it, do it. Well, I'm telling you, you still need to go in front of the embassy, the British embassy, and just any day and have yourself videotaped. Let's
Oh,
read it out.
well,
Sooner
the
the better.
British. It's going to be a different kind of protest in front of the British embassy now. It's going to be more about our human rights being trampled on because the guys from No to NATO, like you saw Jesse's post,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, he's not too happy with that at all. But I'll give you the first page of the stats.
Hmm.
It goes, friends. I want to begin with a very simple question. At what point did the Irish government receive permission to write a blank check to Kiev? Because I don't remember the Irish people being asked. I don't remember a referendum. I don't remember a national conversation in which the people of this supposedly neutral republic agreed that hundreds of millions of euros of our resources should be committed to Ukraine. And I certainly don't remember consenting to Ireland being gradually drawn into the militarization of Europe. Yet here we are. And there is something more deeply troubling about the pattern that I've witnessed. Again and again, major scandals erupt in Ukraine, and Ireland responds each time by reaching for the checkbook. In November of 2025, Ukraine was rocked by the enormous Midas corruption investigation involving allegations of a roughly $100 million kickback operation centered on the state nuclear energy company Energoatom. This wasn't some accusation dreamed up by Russia. These were investigations conducted by Ukraine's own anti-corruption institutions. Two ministers left office. I said, and on the 28th of November, Andrei Yermak, Zelensky's enormously powerful chief of staff and one of the most influential figures in Ukraine, resigned after anti-corruption investigators searched his home. For accuracy, Yermak had not been named as a suspect in that investigation. But look at what happened next. And then it goes on. That was the first page. Um, but you can see it. Okay, it might have dragged on to maybe nearly 10 minutes. But yeah, I do read quite fast, but I wanted to kind of give you a flavor of
Hmm.
where that kind of where that speech would have went. Now, Bill is Bill, and Bill just speaks off the cuff. He doesn't kind of rely on notes.
Hmm.
But I didn't want to skip over anything. I wanted all bases covered, so that's why I'll read from notes sometimes. Now I had a PDF of it saved into the phone. So I said if I'm gonna be talking with a mic stand in front of me, uh, then I'd use the pages. If I was had a microphone, well then I'd use the phone probably
Right,
or vice.
right.
Yeah, depending on which was easier to manage. But
Yeah, I understand.
yeah, but when 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 we were let out of the interrogation rooms and I went out to meet Bill. Sorry, go on.
I was gonna say they let you fly back with no problems.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And
Well,
Ireland,
like
when you land in Ireland, there was no problems.
No, there was no issues. There was no
Okay.
issue. Like I said, I don't think that I don't see the Irish government having a big issue with us. Um, we're always very courteous when we. It's been a while since we've had a decent protest. I think the last one was the Odessa massacre one when we were kind of out
Yeah.
in force. The small one we had on Grattan Bridge in Dublin when Zelensky was over for the first day of the Irish presidency of the European Council, and we rolled out that banner. I'd love to bring that banner.
Well,
And
you know,
that's
you are overdue for a big protest. It's been a quiet summer.
it has, and now there's more reason to protest than ever. So Bill's nose has put out a joint.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
Mine has. I had told Bill.
Just wait till you get your phones back before. Oh, and by the
I,
way, I would never use that phone again because I will
no,
guarantee you there's going to be tracking devices all over and programs in it for everything, financial
yeah,
information, key recording, key stroke recordings, everything else. Guarantee you.
yeah, Stas, they did. When I said, "How are we supposed to get in touch with anybody?" No, actually, first of all, I said, "You know that our boarding passes are in our phones." I said, "I don't have it printed out." So they came back and they said, "Oh, we've got in touch with Ryanair, with the check-in desk, and we've told them make sure to give you printed boarding passes." And they gave us this little piece of shit Nokia. It was like this size, like like a piece of chocolate. It looked like with some buttons on it, and they said, "Oh, you can go into WH Smith and buy a SIM card there for about £10." I went in and a SIM card. I paid £30 for a SIM card. That's like almost €40. You know what I mean? And then it turned out that the phone didn't work. So I told Bill, I said to Bill earlier today, I said, Bill, get the fuck rid of that phone because I said there's probably a listening device on that. And while you're
Absolutely.
not and while you're not doing anything criminal, do you really want your private life exposed? I mean, like I said, there's in one application at one time yesterday, there was 4 devices logged in.
Yep.
You know, and there's a lot of private stuff in there, and there's so many people. Like, so it's a human, like absolute trampling on your human rights, and your privacy rights. But
Yep.
I think it looks like there is no right to privacy anymore. And then I remember saying to Bill on the train, we were on our way to Gatwick. Um, I said, any thoughts of retirement? And he goes, what do you mean? I said, thinking of stepping back away from it all. And he said, no. He said, this only fucking made me more determined now.
It's pissed
I
them
said,
off.
yeah, but I said, Bill, I said, it's making me think. I said, because, well, Bill's wife passed on some time
Mhm.
back. But uh, I said, I've got Svetlana to think of and a move to Russia. I said, I don't want anything impeding those things. And I don't want to be giving her unnecessary worry. And I mean, the chickens really came home to roost I
Yeah.
when I opened a FaceTime with her yesterday morning from my work colleague's phone, and I saw her face just puffed, and floods of tears came out. But she was relieved that I was safe. She said, "I thought you were possibly in prison." I said, "Love, I told you everything's fine." I said, "I haven't done anything criminal. Why would I be in prison?" You know. But then like it's like we had been talking on the Molotov discussion group last Sunday about political prisoners, and there's a lot of political prisoners that they certain members of the group want us to support and write letters for, and things like that, which we will do, and we'll be exposing their plights as well.
Yeah, that's a good thing to do.
But Stas, I'll be honest with you. I'm not saying it shook me up because like, I mean, in these kind of situations, even though these people are acting nice, they're they can stab you at the same time as
Oh
they,
yeah.
you know,
Well, they're
you
gathering
smile.
information. They're not your friends. They're
Yeah,
constantly gathering
yeah,
information.
yeah, yeah.
So,
And the whole thing. So there's two guys in a room. Each time there's two guys in the room. So Bill had two guys and I had two guys, and Bill was we were talking about our interrogations with each other once we were released, and uh, so there's this main guy asking most of the questions, and he's the one who signed the thing from my phones, and then there's the other guy. So one guy is asking you questions, and then the other guy is watching you. Like, I mean,
yep.
and he's looking at your body language. I'm sure he's looking for sweat beads coming from your pores, whether you're blinking, whether your mouth is twitching, whether you've got, you know, whether you're
Yep.
twiddling your thumbs excessively or acting nervous. I could see and I could feel what he was at. And of course, and he's also writing questions down. So when the guy who's asking the questions finishes with one round of questions, your man passes him his notepad, and they swap notepads, and then he continues with another line of questions. So occasionally the guy who's asking most of the questions will let the other guy jump in and say, "Oh, did you want to ask something or say something?" But but uh, there's a lot of people would have been very shook up, and in the past, I'd have been probably very nervous in that situation. You probably you start you My imagination could have been running wild and thinking I'd never see daylight again and things like that. But
Right.
then I just had to keep reminding myself I've done nothing wrong. I mean, nothing criminal, unless like we are on the way to uh, you know this kind of this going to be seen as propaganda, and you're saying, oh, you're taking the Russian side. They will criminalize that. They will absolutely criminalize that.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And so look at Svetlana's situation as well. And they were, I mean, so I spoke to a couple of friends about what happened, and they were saying, Jesus Christ, and in airports you have people coming through with no documents and like long criminal records in the countries that they've come from. I said, and they said, and you were getting pulled in and interrogated like that, 5 hours of questions, you know, having your medications taken away. Okay, they offered us hot drinks, but Jesus, why would you want a hot drink in that environment yesterday? Or sorry, Saturday. The fucking day was so hot. So I said no, thanks, but I will have some more water. Thanks very much. But yeah, I, initially I was saying, and I did even I promised Fred that I said I'd take a step back for a while. So I might do and just kind of concentrate more on the writing. And I still have to finish this journalism course. So
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, I've uh, that Substack that I've been
Mm-hmm.
contributing to. I opened that Substack 3 years ago. I was only after I posted I submitted the second article that I looked at the date that I did opened the
Mm-hmm.
Substack, and then I said, I should have been doing this a long time ago, you know,
Yep.
and I could have had I could have been kind of well ahead of the game, especially in this country. There's a lot of people doing it now, but a lot of people wouldn't stick their neck out in the same way that I would. They're not prepared to go to foreign countries and get involved in protests. Um, I think it's seen as too dangerous, and you're looking at possibility of arrest now.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
I know.
yeah.
I know.
So one of the detectives was saying, "Oh, we still have free speech in Britain,"
Yeah.
and I
Well,
said,
okay. No, they do. They do have free speech as long as you're saying what they want you to say, you have all the
"Yeah,
free speech you could ever want.
yeah, you can freely repeat our narrative, all right, Well, I said to him, are you being serious? I said, what about the amount of people? I said, what about all these videos? I said, posted online. I said, showing people are being dragged from their homes over Facebook or Instagram posts or TikToks or something like that. I said, are you telling me that I can't believe my lying eyes like with this stuff? And he goes, oh, there's always two sides. And I said, I only just, yeah, the two sides that I see are censorship and intimidation.
Yep.
And there's probably three sides, possible imprisonment, really, you know, because, it's coming. I think you're aware it's coming down the pipe in Britain that
Oh,
they're
absolutely.
going to ban
Absolutely.
16 from social media. And then I think that's the first step. And then they're going to see if you're a good little boy or girl and you know they'll be looking at probably people's when they introduce social credit scores and their 15-minute cities and their all these dystopian things that they have in the pipeline that you won't be allowed to say anything that's it's going to be 1984 on steroids. I think you know that's what the other
Yeah.
day felt.
Uh,
I said
Orwell
he,
didn't know about the internet. So, yeah.
he's I think well, I think he had a good idea that technology was going to play a part in you know probably not the World Wide Web like
Hmm.
but I mean we're heading to a bad place. But Ireland, we're not there yet. We're not as full on. I don't see people getting arrested for social media posts here yet.
Yet.
But yeah, but I did go through. The way I had two Telegram channels. I had the Ain't Pat the Truth. That one was started first. I started that one during COVID, and
Hmm.
because I my Facebook was constantly being restricted, and I was on the verge of losing Facebook at one stage because uh, I was counter narrative on all things COVID and the
Oh,
origins
that's
of that.
verboten. Yeah, that's very verboten.
Yeah, and look what's happening now. Did you watch Fauci in front of under?
It doesn't matter with Fauci because he's already been pardoned.
Yeah,
Biden pardoned him for everything. So at least on
yeah,
a federal level. So, at
yeah,
that point, what's the difference?
yeah. Biden pardoned his own son also. I think he pardoned himself, even if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that. But
No, he can't pardon himself. Somebody has to pardon him. So he can step down and have the vice president become president and pardon him.
yeah, yeah. I well, do you know what? Things are probably heading in that direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a mad world, but yeah, Ireland is it's very messy here at the moment. We're waiting for the Dáil recess to be over now, and that's coming up very soon. And of course, the triple lock is uh, going to be run
And
through the house there. I would
yeah.
say it could very well come down to the president. Could very well come down to Catherine Connolly, whether
Yep.
she is going to sign off on that or whether she's going to. There's a lot of people now. A couple of years back, we'd have been very confident of hanging on to neutrality and the triple lock remaining in place. But now all the scaremongering and there's constant lies in the press and social media here about Russian threats and threats to national security and threats to Europe um, in all kinds of ways. Um, yeah, I think the triple lock is really on the threat, and then I think that's the first step on the ladder to NATO on a recession
Yep.
into NATO.
That's kind of a
Unfortunately,
disaster.
I think so. I think so, Stas. Unless there's a revolt in the country, you know, there's a lot of people saying it won't happen, but I think you know they when they like the Nice treaties and the Lisbon treaties or Maastricht, whichever one, two treaties we had to run back, uh, or two referendums, sorry, we had to run back as regards treaties when the governments of the day the results that they wanted. So I think we're in a bad place. We're in a tight place now. It will come down to the wire. I think it will be a close thing, but they seem very determined to get this over the line and um, get involved in this hyper militarization that Europe is
It's
on.
it's a great way to make money, but we're
Yeah,
at it.
that's it. Making some money with some friends. Kickback central it will be here, you know. And Ireland's been like 100 years. I mean, we've had a duopoly here for so long that I I I know Sinn Féin, who were considered the opposition, um, they're not really considered an opposition anymore. They're just considered probably a third cheek of the same arse, if you can actually have that. But they're 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 only waiting for their chance to ride the gravy train as well. So the people have lost faith. They don't see them. They don't see Sinn Féin. That's the Republican Party as an alternative anymore. They see them as just more of the same. So
Yeah,
yeah,
their
everybody wants to be
fathers and
on the gravy.
grandfathers must be squirming in their graves right now.
I
Uh,
think so. I think so, Stas. You know.
well, Patrick, I've got another appointment. I've got to run on this. I'm telling
Yeah.
you, go to the British Embassy, read the speech as a separate protest, and then the other protest.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like I mean, it can be combined. I can say what I can. Yeah. But I'll be honest with you. That speech there would probably be more effective in front of the Dáil, in front of Leinster House, which is our houses of Parliament. Um,
Oh, do that too. Why not?
so I could do both. You know, could be done in one day. You know, two birds with the one stone kind of thing. But sure, let's see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
do it. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, look, I'm glad they let you go.
Yeah.
Uh,
You know,
and I'm telling you, your photos are now on in the locker room of half the British police force. They're all,
yeah,
progressive.
yeah. Good shout out. First of all, follow the Truth and Neutrality Alliance on X, on
Absolutely.
Telegram. You can follow me, half Paddy, half Laddie, on TikTok, and you can also find me on Substack, which I've started to get more involved with now. I think it could be under Patsy Bear 74 or half Paddy, half Laddie. It's one or the other. You'll find me under one of those.
And if you're
Yeah,
in the UK, show his picture to the police and say, "Have you seen this lately?"
and they will all have.
Sorry, I've got to do a little bit of a poke there.
Career. Great talking to you again.
It
And
is, it is.
I'm trying my. You told me you were going to slow down. I'm seeing
I
you.
did slow down. I slowed down for 2 months.
I'm
I'm
seeing you.
speeding back up.
Seeing you busier than ever. I'm not joking with you when I say I can't keep up because I try my best to watch every video. Um, because yeah, it always makes for good entertainment, but it's always informative as well. You know. So,
So
but
soon as it's
yeah,
gonna be Stoss 24-hour channel.
I
Except I'll be sitting there like this after a week. You know.
if you ever want to subcontract some of that podcast, and I need to learn the ropes anyway, you know. So I will get up and running soon myself.
Get up and running. Get monetized.
Yeah, I just need to see what way I'm going to be set up. There's a few things like I'm just I got to think of the first few guests and then how to put the initial kind of shows out and yeah, take it from there.
I will say this to you as advice. Figure out who your audience is and stick with that. Because if you change your course, you're better off just starting a new channel. A friend of mine, he was doing a I'm in Russia channel, just like,
Yeah,
every day, this is what Russia is. And he had a good audience and he decided to go politics and it just killed it because the system is now geared for that channel to that audience. And when you change audiences, it doesn't know what to do anymore. So after a while of floundering around, he wound up having to do a separate channel and start up a separate channel just for
that
politics.
Yeah, that's not Sam's Russian Adventures, is it?
No, I'm not gonna name the person. But but no, it's
No,
not.
no,
But that's just the reality of it. That's how the algorithm runs. So if you're just
yeah,
doing everything across the board, you're not gonna be able to take off anymore because the system doesn't know what the hell to do with you. It's
yeah,
the system loses it. So, that's just how it is. And I've seen it with other people. I've watched other people talk about it, and I've seen it with other people who try to change course. You're just easier to do a separate channel and build up
yeah.
from zero again.
Well, I think you have an idea of kind of the style of, you
Yeah.
know,
I mean, styles can change, but the target audience needs to be consistent, more or less consistent.
yeah, given a chance to grow. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I know. Like I've been trying to get advice, but does people think I'm only going to attract, you know, too much attention here on myself? And let's see if if I do start to hear, it will continue in Russia anyway
Oh
when I
yeah.
make the move.
Do it, do it. All right,
Oh, that
I've
was
got to run. I'm sorry, but we'll talk soon. And uh, give them the speech. Give them the speech. I'm telling you, everybody.
yeah,
Thank you.
we were just go out of it.
Cheers.
This